Thanks, Arafat, for excellent talk and also being able to reply in written form in the chat. So we are now just waiting for the last session of the very first Espressif Developer Conference 2022. This session is called General Q&A, and we will have Amey and Kedar from the India office who will answer some of the questions. I will add you, Amey and Kedar, to the live stream. And hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Hey, folks.
Hi, everyone.
How are you all?
Perfect. So we have you both. The video is working, sound is working. And just to clarify a bit the process, so we were watching the comments all the day long, and we sort some of the questions. Maybe some of them were just like frequently asked, or we thought they are important. So we will just answer 8, 10 of questions from the day. We will just now post them from the Espressif account, but they have been answered by you, the audience. And after this is done, we will maybe pick also some questions from the chat. Maybe some interesting one will occur. So let's start with the first one. Can you describe how Matter will work in the real life? What will it change for the end user?
Yeah, I think I'll take this one. So I think what Matter does is that before Matter, the era before Matter, it was really hard to build smart or connected devices because there was, each ecosystem had its own specificities. You had to have iOS app, Android app linking with, different skills and voice assistants and stuff. So just building the products was in itself fairly complicated, which, made the overall cost of the devices on the higher side. And secondly, I think what happens is that because of this fragmentation of ecosystems, it was harder to get real value from ecosystems because the real value really comes when devices can interact with each other and you can create some interesting combinations there. I think that's exactly what Matter supports. Instead of having different ecosystems address these things, this is one standard where everybody has come together and said, hey, as long as devices support this particular standard, we'll make sure that we work with it in a very efficient way and in the best possible way. That is one big part of it. So everybody's there, it's interoperable. Secondly, from a standard development perspective, they've made sure that some of the interesting use cases around device to device communication, communicating with across different transport protocols like Wi-Fi or 802.15.4 thread-based devices is really smooth. And finally, the focus on security, which will just ensure that there's a very standard way of making sure that everybody builds these apps. So I think those would be some of the top things that I think would definitely make a change as far as end users is concerned. I mean, if you want to add anything, feel free to.
Yeah, just probably one thing. I think Matter also enables higher level innovation in some ways, right? So, for example, Amazon ambient intelligence clusters or Google intelligent clusters, which can provide additional information like if the user is home or away to the devices in the format that Matter devices can understand, right? And that basically unlocks even the higher level innovation by the device manufacturers.
Okay, let's continue with the second question. For consumer product developer, can Matter and ESP Rainmaker provide product diagnostics and performance feedback for individual products?
Kedar, you are on mute.
Sorry. Yeah. So this is something that we've been hearing a lot from customers, where as developers want to understand more about how their devices are performing in the field. Is there any diagnostics that they can get out of it and have some way of acting on it? And this is one of the reasons where we introduced ESP Insights, which acts like a central repository where all the devices in the field can submit certain logs or metrics. And then as a developer, you have a centralized view of the various things that are happening on the devices spread all throughout. You can look at graphs which are time wise, and you can slice and dice the data to quickly understand what may be going wrong with the devices. And the framework being fairly generic, you can model different components there. So you can include it from a robustness perspective. You can include metrics so that you understand where the performance how the performance varies, and you can use it for performance optimizations too.
Okay, let's have the next question. And is it, can you please explain the difference between thread border router and Matter bridges?
Yeah, so Matter supports Wi-Fi and 802.15.4. In terms of Matter, what they do is that because 802.15.4 is a separate standard, there is something called a border router, a thread border router, which ensures that IP connectivity is seamlessly achieved between the Wi-Fi side of the network and the 802.15.4 side of the network. And that's the value that a thread border router provides, and that allows us that makes sure that all the devices in the 802.15.4 and Wi-Fi side can communicate with each other properly. So support for thread is inherent within the Matter protocol. Having said that, there could be certain other transports that you could be using. It could be BLE mesh, or anything outside which is not really Wi-Fi or 802.15.4. And in those cases, the Matter standard expects to use Matter bridges, where essentially the bridge is creating you can think of it like a bridge is creating a virtual device for every device that it is trying to bridge. And that's how it literally bridges between a different transport and brings it onto the IP network that is accessible by Matter.
Okay, the next question, I have seen it, I think, under every talk discussion, so I hope we will just kind of answer it for a lot of viewers. And it's, when will ESP32H2 will be available, and what are going to be like the key differences for this chip?
Sure, I'll take that question. ESP32H2, it will be available around the end of first quarter, early second quarter of next year for engineering samples. So basically, ESP32H2 being a first 802.15.4 chip with support for both Thread, ZigBee, and also Bluetooth Low Energy. There is a lot of interest in this chip right now. And I think in terms of the key differentiators, this chip is ideally focused for thread-based Matter devices, but also ZigBee use cases. And it has all the good features built into it, like a digital signature peripheral with ECDSA, which can really protect the Matter keys with hardware security. So yes, the key differentiator will be good security and good functionality at quite competitive cost points. I think that's how I would define the key differentiator for this chip.
Okay. So we can just summarize. It's close, guys. So hold on, and you will receive it soon. Next question: can the attributes for the ESP insights be posted over a cellular network?
Basically, what we've done with ESP Insights is that there's multiple different ways with which the insights data can be reported to the cloud. One is the device agents can obviously share the MQTT connection that they have for command and control with the cloud, and send their insights data to the cloud. At the same time, we've also included REST-based APIs. So let's say a device is not using MQTT, they could just use the REST API to post their diagnostics data to the cloud. Since the REST API is available, technically you can, any agent which is outside of the device could also potentially post this diagnostic information to the cloud over a cellular network. This is also a feature request sort of that we have heard from some of our early users where they're trying to check whether the phone applications near the devices can gather any insights data over the BLE and then use their connectivity to send it to the Insights Cloud also. So this could help address scenarios where, for example, the device is getting some poor Wi-Fi connectivity. So the device in itself cannot post this data, but the phone app can act on their behalf and get this data out. So yeah, technically it can be done, yes. You'll have to find a way to extract that data from the devices and then send it to the cloud.
Following question is also about ESP Insights, and it's can ESP Insights be connected with AWS CloudWatch?
So connectors for ESP Insights is something that we've been working on because as you can imagine, essentially we will end up acquiring a lot of data in terms of metrics and logs from all these devices that are diagnostics data. And it is one of the activities that we are currently working on is to identify how can we easily connect this data to different consumers of this data. So right now this data is processed in our backend and then can be visualized using the Insights dashboard, but there are customers who would want this data to be funneled into their own data pipelines where they can do their own slice and dice and other operations. So that is definitely something that we're working on. Specifically about the CloudWatch is it's an interesting idea and definitely worth exploring further. But yeah, it's this is one of the parts that we've been looking at very actively, and it's on the roadmap right now.
Okay, thank you. Next question is about ESP Rainmaker, and can it be self-hosted or is it only Espressif hosted instance?
Probably I'll take that question. So ESP Rainmaker, yes, we do have a public instance of ESP Rainmaker for all the hobbyist and maker community as well as academia. However, the way customers typically use ESP Rainmaker is by hosting the same software in their own AWS account. And with that, customers get complete control over all the data that is getting generated, as well as the business logic that can be implemented on top of ESP Rainmaker on the cloud side. So yes, in short, ESP Rainmaker is a private cloud offering from Espressif, which can be self-hosted in your own AWS account. And Espressif managed cloud is always available to use for maker community, hobbyists, as well as academia.
Okay, thank you for the answer. Next question. How do we opt for commercial deployment for ESP Rainmaker?
Yes, it is quite simple. For the commercial deployment, please get in touch with sales@espressif.com and they will guide you through the process of doing the commercial deployment.
Okay, guys, so now the question, okay, we have one more we found out during the day, so I will share this one. Hello there, does Espressif offer Salesforce support with dedicated VA? We are a company that is going to buy a lot of chips and we are currently struggling with the responsiveness of GitHub.
Yes, I think, again, for all such requests where you need, where you are building a product and you want to go to production, I think the best way is, of course, to work with our forums and on GitHub issues, but sometimes you do need some dedicated support. I request you to use the form available on our website to raise such queries, and our business team will respond to you based on your queries appropriately. So I think that is the best way to get in touch with us, using the technical queries form that is available on our website in case of such type of requests.
Okay, perfect. So now the sorted questions are answered. So I think we have time to take a look on the questions in the chat. I just saw there have been like few questions about how to start projects and what is the the best SoC for me. So let me highlight like this question, and I will gladly ask you guys to answer that. So the question is, can you quickly elaborate on what is the best use case for using ESP32 versus ESP32S3 versus ESP32C3, and how can I choose the best chip for the project?
Sure. So I think I would basically like to draw a timeline here, right? So ESP32 was launched in around early 2017, whereas C3 and S3 they were launched in 2021 and 2022 respectively. So ESP32 has seen many interesting use cases built around that, and those use cases can typically be classified into pure connectivity type of use cases versus some applications which require a lot more GPIO and a lot more compute power, which utilizes ESP32's dual core architecture, right? So I think that's where the split is essentially when we look at ESP32 S3 and C3. For any simple connectivity application, ESP32C3 offers quite good functionality at a reasonable cost. But if you are building an application which requires, say, a higher number of GPIOs or parallel touch interface, parallel display interface, or a PSRAM to have a bigger memory for your applications, or running some neural networks or digital signal processing type of algorithms using AI acceleration available in S3, that's where S3 comes into the picture. Having said that, some of the functionality is unique to ESP32 as well. For example, you want to use Ethernet controller for your projects, ESP32 can still be a good choice of SoC.
Okay, we got also one question about the ESP32S3 box, which is like pretty favorite type of board. So let's highlight this one and we can try to answer it. So the question is, I want to start a hobby project with Matter and iMaker. Can I use ESP32S3 box to control everything?
So S3 box as a Matter controller, which is a device which can control other device, is a project that we are working on right now, because so far out of the gate, what we support today is devices which are Matter endpoints, which can act as bulbs and switches. One of the things that we are working on right now is where the S3 box can act as a controller. Because Matter supports device-to-device automation, anyway, one device can control the other device. But with a controller, I think a few additional things like having the ability to commission other devices or acting as an OTA provider for other devices comes into picture. And those are certain things that we are working on. And especially with the S3 box, it's a very exciting scenario to be able to support that and have this hub kind of a functionality. So that's something we are definitely working on right now.
Okay.
Just to add one thing here, if you search for ESP Matter demo, you will see a demo video which includes S3 box acting as a Matter controller in the setup.
So I think we are just like picking up last 3 questions and we will finish. So the first one is, it is possible for Matter application to be customized?
Yes. So in terms of so Matter application could be a phone application, or it could be an application on the firmware. On the firmware side, with the connected home IP repository upstream, or even in the ESP Matter repository, there's a fair number of examples that we support, and we've all the code is available. You're free to customize. You can essentially at the Matter level, you have things like clusters, and then a cluster can have attributes and commands. There are a set of supported clusters, attributes, and commands that you can obviously add to the existing examples. At the same time, you're free to also define your own commands or attributes as extensions to these clusters, and then make them part of your applications as well. On the phone app side, there's the upstream repository also has source code references for both Android as well as iOS, so you can take those and then start your customization from that side.
Okay. Any ideas about some other questions? Kedar or Amey, you just see in the chat.
Yeah, I do see an interesting question here. Can ESP privilege separation be used with CircuitPython? Kedar, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, so I think so I was looking at I was listening to the circuit Python session. It was definitely interesting. That's one of the things that was going through my mind also, because one of the things that we've tried to do with ESP privilege separation is that since most of the parts stay in the kernel space, your user space application becomes fairly lightweight. You can quickly update it, and the speed with which you can do this is much faster, and it's something which is an often overlooked aspect of the whole user kernel separation, because most people are looking at it from a security point of view, but how quickly you can do it, because the size of the application is much smaller, is definitely of interest there. So that's one of the ways that I was thinking about it as I went through this session, where I think there's definitely some synergies there which can be explored. The other part that the interpreted language sort of does is has this virtual machine, right? So you get some sense of separation between the host and the application that is running on top of that. So there's probably some redundancy there, but beyond that, I think there's definitely some interesting things that you can do with that speed.
Okay, so I think right now we are just a bit over 15 minutes, so we can finish this session. Thank you, Amey and Kedar, for joining. Bye-bye.
Thanks everyone. This was a great day of presentation, and look forward to listening to the sessions tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you.
So all the viewers, we are at the end of the first day. I will just clarify one question. A lot of you ask if the talks will be available later on YouTube. So don't be afraid, we will upload the talks so you can watch them later. And I hope you enjoyed the first day. Tomorrow there is going to be a small change, and instead of me, Pedro Minatel will be handling the Q&A moderating. And we will now just share the link for the tomorrow session. It's going to start again at 10 a.m. Central European Summer Time. So thanks a lot for joining. We appreciate it, and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.